Here's another round of the 70s versus the 90s, and it's another thrill ride with teeth as I put Mike Nichols' The Day of the Dolphin against Renny Harlin's Deep Blue Sea. And like I said, this is a thrill ride with teeth. And the first one, Day of the Dolphin, starring George C. Scott. The plot in and of itself is kind of lame. It's like a fucking these George C. Scott's some kind of like marine biologist guy, all this kind of shit. And him and his wife find a dolphin and they call it Alpha, and then they teach it to talk and shit like that. But then all the while, mind you, spoiler alert, be sure to watch these fucking movies before you watch these videos and shit. And because I gotta dissect these motherfuckers to like really, figure out which one is better, academically fucking speaking and shit. But they fucking do all this shit, for 4 years, and then not really knowing like who the fuck is funding them. And, they put a mole in there. So like when the time's right, they fucking just, steal these dolphins that, they think they're going to use these dolphins to assassinate we assume like a president or something. But, it ends up backfiring on them because, these are some dumb motherfuckers, and then first off too, like Mike Nichols is one of the worst directors, especially for shit like this. For me, the film is severely like miscast and they could have found a way better director, because like you can clearly tell Mike Nichols does not give a fuck about this movie, and also on top of that, like Buck Henry could probably give a fuck less about writing this fucking script, but motherfuckers still had to get paid even in the grand artistic days of the 70s. But this movie had the potential to be like a great thriller, and also too, there's not enough like consequence for like these motherfuckers meddling with nature and shit, Now granted, it's not as severe as like say, somebody trying to, modify a shark's brain to help cure Alzheimer's, where the intentions are good. You probably could have been a lot smarter. And that brings us to Deep Blue Sea, which way better cast. And Renny Harlin is the guy to do shit like this. Renny Harlin, one of the greatest action directors of all time. Like he even something as absurd as Deep Blue Sea, he can make it entertaining and thrilling. Whereas like somebody like Mike Nichols is too worried about sounding clever and shit. The Day of the Dolphin is so like on itself to prove like how clever it is, as opposed to actually being a fun movie and shit. There's funny moments in it. Like the Paul Sorvino character is fucking creepy as fuck. And you're it's that kind of fucking subterfuge shit. We're led to believe this is the guy you shouldn't trust, and then all of a sudden he's the guy you're supposed to trust, and it's just and most of the side characters just kind of linger. Like Edward Herman fucking driving that boat. Just looking the most exhausted, like kind of how I felt getting through this fucking movie. Because like the last third of the movie is when the thriller aspect kicks in, but I'm so bored all throughout, and the weird fucking dolphin sequences, the kind of borders on dolphin porn and shit. It's just a weird fucking movie. I don't know. I honestly don't think they knew what they were trying to do. It's like, well, we have George C. Scott and we got dolphins. Let's see what we can get out of it, because like George C. Scott at that point in his career was just, somebody that you could like trust in a movie, and they're just so naive, dumb naive, as opposed to like in Deep Blue Sea, these motherfuckers are just dumb, but the cast is so like fucking brilliant. You got fucking Thomas Jane, very slept on actor, and LL Cool J, like, he's great comic relief in the film and shit, and this motherfucker, he never dies, in a horror film. And, Samuel L. Jackson's in, fucking great, how like in Jurassic Park, he got eaten in that one too, and, fucking Michael Rappaport's bitch ass, and fucking, goddamn, Stellan Skarsgård getting, and every fucking kill in the movie kind of like has a fucking purpose and shit, and it's like, they all learn a lesson. The ones that survive, Thomas Jane and LL Cool J. Thomas Jane's the only smart one in the movie, and LL Cool J is the religious one in the movie. So, the ones that really aren't to get it, even the chick that started the whole fucking thing to try to cure Alzheimer's and shit, like her intentions were good, but she realized, she fucked up, she sacrifices herself in the fucking film, and so the movie itself is just thrilling from beginning to end. The opening is clearly like, kind of an homage to Jaws, but still honestly not as straight of a Jaws ripoff as you would like to think. Honestly kind of closer to Day of the Dolphin, where you're kind of modifying nature and trying to get these animals to conform to what you want them to fucking do. You know, granted, like Day of the Dolphin's not that severe, but it also didn't have that good of a payoff other than the fucking dolphin, because these motherfuckers are so dumb that they think, oh, well, they're smart, but you didn't listen to George C. Scott say he only talks because they like doing it for him, you know, and it's like they're only responding to certain things, and you're fucking trying to train these fucking dolphins to go blow up a fucking boat, and they end up blowing up your own boat, and it's funny, yeah, but then that fucking ending is just so fucking lame, you know. Yeah, the dolphins get free, but we're left to speculate on whatever the hell else happened, you know. It's like, I don't go to the movies to work shit out, I go to the movies to have shit worked out for me and shit, you know. And then fucking Deep Blue Sea definitely did that. It wrapped it all up perfectly, you know. And it's like, you know, and it's a thing of the 70s too, that the paranoid cinema of the 70s was like, you know, we just want to, like, you can't trust nobody, you know, not even your own people, the establishment, all that fucking shit. You know, this is from a New York hipster that, you know, was like all about the fucking establishment when he was the toast of the town, and then now fucking trying to do fucking paranoid thrillers just didn't really, it just doesn't gel well, you know. He's better at doing like comedic character studies, and he kind of even sucks at doing that shit. And so whereas Renny Harlin, like, you know, they understand what the fuck Deep Blue Sea is. I don't think anybody really understood what the Day of the Dolphin was or what it could be. Like, I haven't read the book, but I imagine it's way fucking better than the shit we saw on the fucking screen, you know. Like, you can argue that some of the dolphin sequences are great, but some of them are pretty fucking weird, and that, you know, they fuck with them in the kind of way that it's like, you know, yeah, that chick in Deep Blue Sea fucking like modified the brains of the sharks, but, you know, at least, you know, they weren't fucking like torturing them, or maybe they were. That's why they fucking, you know, have them in cages. You know, all arguments can be fucking made, but, you know, George C. Scott just seemed like a bigger asshole. These motherfuckers in Deep Blue Sea just seemed like a bunch of, you know, dumbasses. Other than Thomas Jane and LL Cool J, they were smart enough to get out. You know, some people are so smart they can be fucking dumb, and I think Deep Blue Sea definitely represents that. So I mean, I gotta give it to the 90s on this one, because like, the end of the day, you know, what makes a better movie and shit. And like, you know, if I can't even fucking like, you know, be intrigued by a fucking thriller about dolphins trying to assassinate somebody, that's a shitty movie. Whereas Deep Blue Sea, that movie never fucking stops from beginning to end. I got no complaints with it. It knows what it is. It's got a great cast. It's fun. You know, a thrill, the epitome of a fucking thrill ride, you know, because, like, granted, some of the CGI shark shit gets a little silly, but, you know, it's still not as silly as some of that dolphin shit they did in Day of the Dolphin, you know, and the ending is perfect, you know, everything's wrapped up, you know what the fuck's going on. Because if the movie I can, like, concoct in my head is better than the one I actually saw, that's not a great fucking movie either. Yeah, I can come up with 30 different fucking plot lines for the Day of the Dolphin, but like Deep Blue Sea, there's only one. I was like, there's no other way to get through that shit other than maybe not be on that goddamn fucking like place when it's like storming and shit, you know, or maybe be a little smarter with the fucking shit. You know, everybody's got to get greedy and move forward and shit, you know, but that's the point of the fucking story. It does it brilliantly, and it's fun. You can make a statement and still make a fun movie, you know, because you're not really trying to make a statement, you're trying to make entertainment, and that's what it's all about. So 90s take this round with Deep Blue Sea. For anybody keeping score, that's 16-13. 70s are still up by 3, but the 90s are closing in. You know, they have a chance to tie it up this weekend. You know, I'll be doing matchups here and there. We got the main event coming up, Westworld versus Jurassic Park, and other ones to come. I'm going to try to see if I can tie it up and really get it heating up. So, biggest takeaway is Renny Harlin's great, Mike Nichols is trash. So, right there, 16-13, 70 still up by 3, but look like the 90s are coming back, you know, fucking ready to rumble and shit. So, like I said, if I've said anything wrong in these videos, anything you disagree with, or if you got suggestions, feel free to comment. I don't give a fuck. I'll address every one of them. You know, I'm just having fun with this. It's a personal academic study that I'm gonna find. I got to know now. It's going into overdrive. Fuck it.